I want you to stop what you're doing and think about how much money you have sitting in accounts right now that aren't your investment accounts. Checking account, savings account, that old account from your last bank, Venmo, PayPal, maybe a CD your parents set up that you forgot about. Add it up in your head. Whatever that number is, I want you to hold it. Because based on what I'm about to show you, there is an almost 100% chance that number is costing you somewhere between $200,000 and $600,000 over your lifetime. Not because you're doing anything wrong, not because the market crashed, not because you made a bad investment, because your money is breathing. But it's not alive. And nobody is going to tell you this. Not your bank, not your HR department, not the app you use to check your balance. Because they all benefit from you not knowing. My name is Nick, and this video is going to be uncomfortable. Let's go. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about the invisible forces that quietly destroy people's financial futures. If you're someone who feels like you're doing everything right, saving, investing, being responsible, but you're not sure why you're not getting ahead as fast as you expected, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this ends up helping you out. Because today, we're talking about what I believe is the single most underrated wealth killer there is. And I promise you, it is not your spending. Everyone already knows about spending. Every finance video ever made is about spending. Stop buying coffee, cancel your subscriptions. We've all heard it. This is something different, something quieter, and honestly, something way more dangerous. Quick, without looking it up, do you know the exact interest rate your savings account is paying you right now? Most people don't. And that gap between I think it's fine and the actual number is exactly where this wealth killer lives. Here's the thing. There's this assumption baked into how most people think about personal finance. The assumption is if you're not losing money, you're fine. If your account balance isn't going down, you're safe. And that assumption is completely wrong. There's a concept in economics called opportunity cost. It basically means the cost of what you gave up in order to do what you actually did. And most people have no idea how brutally expensive their opportunity costs are. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have $20,000 sitting in a traditional savings account, a big bank, one of the major ones you've probably heard of, and that account is paying you 0.4% interest per year, which, by the way, is roughly what the national average savings account rate was for years, and plenty of people are still earning that or less right now. You look at that account and you think, great, my money's safe, I'm being responsible. But here's what's actually happening. Inflation over the last 20 years has averaged around 2.5 to 3% per year. So your 0.4% return means you're losing somewhere between 2 and 2.6% of your purchasing power every single year, silently, without any alarm going off, without your balance going down. Your account looks the same, but the value of what's inside it, what that money can actually buy, is shrinking. Over 20 years, that $20,000 has the purchasing power of about $12,800 in today's dollars. You didn't spend a dime. You didn't make a single bad financial decision, and you lost the equivalent of $7,200. Here's a number that genuinely disturbed me when I found it. According to the FDIC, Americans collectively hold over $17 trillion in deposit accounts, checking, savings, money markets. Over $10 trillion of that is earning less than 1%. That is $10 trillion quietly losing a race against inflation, right now, today, owned by people who think they're being responsible. So that's the surface of this problem. But here's what's actually weird about it, and what took me a while to really understand. It's not that people don't know this is happening. Most financially literate people have heard of inflation.
They know savings accounts don't earn much.
The real question is, why do they keep doing it anyway? Why do smart people, people who read about money, who watch videos like this, still have tens of thousands of dollars sitting completely idle? And the answer to that is a lot more uncomfortable than they just didn't know. Because it's not about knowledge at all. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Nick, but that's just about savings accounts. I already know I should invest. I've got a 401k. And look, that's good. Genuinely. If you have a 401k and you're contributing to it, you're ahead of a lot of people. But here's what most people don't realize. This problem doesn't just exist in savings accounts. It exists everywhere money sits without being fully optimized. Think about this for a second. The average American household has somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 sitting in a checking account at any given time. Not because they need all of it liquid right now, but because it's just there. It's comfortable. It's familiar. That $4,000 sitting in a checking account earning 0.01%, which is literally what most big banks pay on checking accounts, instead of being invested in an index fund earning a historical average of around 7% annually after inflation, over 30 years, that's a difference of roughly $30,000 from $4,000 idle money that you probably don't even think about.
And here's where it starts to really compound. Pun absolutely intended. Because it's rarely just $4,000. It's the $8,000 emergency fund earning nothing. It's the bonus you got 8 months ago that you haven't decided what to do with yet. It's the $500 sitting in a Venmo account because you haven't gotten around to transferring it. It's the $2,000 in a savings account your parents set up when you were a kid that still pays 0.3%. Individually, these all feel like small things. Together, they are a fortune silently evaporating.
And here's the part that really gets me. The people most likely to have this problem are not broke people. They're not financially irresponsible people. They're actually the careful ones, the savers, the people who read articles about money. Because to have idle cash, you first have to have cash. This is almost paradoxically a wealthy person's trap.
There's actually a term financial researchers use for this. They call it cash drag. And studies have shown that for the average retail investor, cash drag, the underperformance caused by money sitting uninvested, costs them between 1% and 1.5% of returns per year. 1.5% might not sound like a lot. Let me show you what it actually means.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's take two people, both 30 years old, both investing $500 a month, both planning to retire at 65. The only difference is that person A has a 7% average annual return, and person B has a 5.5% average annual return because they've got too much idle cash sitting around, dragging their overall portfolio return down by 1.5%. At 65, approximately $1,444,000. At 65, approximately $986,000. That is a $458,000 difference, nearly $500,000 from a 1.5% drag over 35 years from the same monthly investment. And here's the part that genuinely bothers me. Person B probably doesn't feel like they're making a mistake. Their balance is going up, their investments look healthy. There's no moment of obvious failure, no bad trade, no blown up stock pick, just quiet, invisible, compounding underperformance. Vanguard did an internal study and found that the average investor in their own funds underperformed those exact same funds by about 1.5% per year. Not because the funds did badly, but because investors kept moving money in and out, holding too much cash, waiting for the right moment. The enemy wasn't the market. It was the investors' behavior around the market. Okay, so we've established the math.
Nearly $500,000 over a career. Trillions sitting idle right now, today, in accounts earning next to nothing. So here is the question I genuinely find fascinating. And I want you to actually think about this before I answer it. If the information is freely available, if everyone can Google, "Where should I put my savings?" and get a reasonable answer in 30 seconds, why is this still happening at massive scale? Why are you possibly watching this video right now with money sitting somewhere it shouldn't be? It is not because you're dumb. It is not because you don't care about your future. I've talked to doctors, lawyers, engineers, people with finance degrees. This problem cuts across income levels and education levels. The reason is that your brain is running software that was not written for a world with compound interest and index funds. It was written for a world where holding on to physical resources, keeping grain in a silo, keeping gold under a mattress, was genuinely the safest strategy. And that ancient software has 3 specific bugs when it comes to money. Here they are. And there are 3 specific psychological traps that cause it.
The first one is what I call the safety illusion. When money is sitting in cash, it feels safe. There's something deeply comforting about seeing a balance that doesn't move. Markets go up and down, index funds fluctuate, but a savings account? That number just sits there, steady, reassuring. The problem is that this feeling of safety is completely false. Because inflation doesn't feel dangerous. It doesn't announce itself. Your $15,000 emergency fund doesn't send you a notification saying, "Hey, I just lost $300 of purchasing power this year." It just quietly becomes worth less. And because that loss is invisible, your brain never registers it as a loss at all.
Genuinely, when did you last feel bad about money sitting in a savings account? Probably never. Now ask yourself, when did you last feel bad about losing $300? Probably pretty quickly. That's the illusion. The loss is identical. The emotional signal is completely different. Your brain is lying to you, and it's doing it in a way that feels like wisdom.
The second trap is decision paralysis. There's a famous study by psychologists Sheena Iyengar and Mark Lepper, the JAM study. Some of you might have heard of this, where they found that when people were given more options, they were actually less likely to make any choice at all. Too many options overwhelm us, and the brain's default response to overwhelm is inaction. And personal finance? It is absolutely drowning in options. ETFs, index funds, REITs, bonds, treasury bills, high-yield savings accounts, money market funds, I-bonds. The complexity is paralyzing. So what do people do? They leave the money in the familiar place. The checking account, the old savings account, the place they've always kept it. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. The third trap is the "I'll deal with it later" trap. This one is maybe the most dangerous of all because it feels so reasonable in the moment. I just got this bonus. I'll figure out where to put it next month. I need to do more research before I invest this. The market looks weird right now. I'll wait until things settle down. And look, I get it. I've been there. There's something that feels responsible about waiting. Deliberate. Thoughtful. But here's the thing. Every month you wait to invest $10,000 is roughly $58 in potential gains at a 7% annual return. That's $58 per month per $10,000 sitting idle, which means a 6-month delay costs you around $350. A year delay costs you around $700. From doing nothing, from waiting, from being thoughtful. The cost of indecision is real, and it is measurable, and almost nobody ever calculates it. Here's what most people don't realize about compounding, and I mean really don't realize, in their gut, in a way that changes their behavior. Compounding is not linear. It is exponential. And humans are genuinely terrible at intuitively understanding exponential growth.
The last 10 years of a 35-year investment period generate more wealth than the first 25 years combined. Read that sentence again. The last 10 years, more than the first 25 combined. So every year you delay, every year your money sits idle and doesn't compound, you're not just losing that year's gains. You are shrinking the base that those massive final years of compounding will work on. You're essentially cutting off the top of the hockey stick.
There's a thought experiment I love for this. If you folded a piece of paper in half 42 times, how thick would it be? Most people guess a few feet, maybe a meter. The actual answer is roughly the distance from Earth to the moon. That is what exponential growth does to small numbers given enough time. And your portfolio, your boring, automatic index fund portfolio, is the piece of paper. Every year you delay is one fewer fold.
Let me put a number on it. If you invest $300 a month, starting at age 25, and earn 7%, you'll have roughly $798,000 at 65. If you delay just 5 years, same $300 a month, same 7%, starting at 30, you end up with about $567,000. A 5-year delay costs you $231,000. Not because of what you failed to contribute in those 5 years, but because of what those contributions failed to compound into. Now, you might be thinking, but Nick, I need to keep cash around. What about emergencies? What about liquidity? Completely valid. And this is important. I'm not saying keep zero cash. An emergency fund is genuinely important. 3 to 6 months of expenses in liquid savings, that's real. That's necessary. Keep that money accessible.
But here is the key distinction. There's a huge difference between intentional liquidity and idle inertia. Intentional liquidity is, I keep $15,000 in a high-yield savings account at 4.5% because that's my emergency fund and I need it accessible. That is a conscious, deliberate choice. You're still earning something and you know exactly why that money is there. Idle inertia is, I have $15,000 in my checking account because I haven't gotten around to moving it. That is the enemy. And the fix, honestly, is not complicated. It's mostly about systems.
And here's something I find kind of ironic about this whole thing. The people who are most worried about market risk, who keep extra cash just in case, are often taking on more financial risk than someone who is fully invested. Because the risk of inflation and opportunity cost is guaranteed. It happens every single year, automatically, silently. Market risk is uncertain. Inflation risk, 100% certain. You are not playing it safe by sitting in cash. You are just choosing a risk that doesn't feel like one. Okay, here's the part of the video I actually get excited about. Because the fix for everything I just described is almost offensively simple. We're not talking about learning to pick stocks or understanding options trading or becoming some kind of financial expert. We're talking about 4 moves, things you could literally do this week in less than an hour total, that eliminate the quiet wealth killer almost completely. And the reason most people never do them isn't because they're hard. It's because nobody ever laid them out this clearly. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Step 1, do a cash audit. Right now, today. Not next week, not after you finish some research. Open every single account you have. Checking, savings, old accounts from previous jobs, Venmo, PayPal, everything. Write down the balance and the interest rate it's earning. You need to see the full picture in one place. Most people have never done this. And it's genuinely eye-opening when you see, for example, $23,000 spread across 4 different accounts, earning an average of 0.6%. Step 2, separate your cash into buckets. Bucket 1, operational cash.
This is what you need for the next 30 days of expenses. Keep this in your checking account, typically 1 to 2 months of expenses. Bucket 2, emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Move this to a high-yield savings account. Right now, there are options paying 4% or more. Not a lot, but dramatically better than 0.4%. Bucket 3, everything else. Any cash beyond buckets 1 and 2 has no business sitting in a low-yield account. It should be working. Whether that's an index fund, a brokerage account, maxing out a Roth IRA, the specific vehicle matters less than the principle that it needs to be deployed.
Step 3, automate the deployment. This is the single most important thing you can do because it eliminates decision paralysis entirely. Set up an automatic transfer from your paycheck or checking account to your investment account on the same day every month. Make it default. Make it require active effort to not invest rather than active effort to invest. This isn't just practical advice. It's backed by decades of behavioral economics research. People who automate investing consistently outperform people who invest manually, not because the markets treat them differently, but because automation removes the human brain from the equation. And our brains, as we've established, are pretty terrible at this.
Step 4. Set a cash ceiling. Decide right now, what is the maximum amount of cash I will allow myself to hold above my emergency fund before I deploy it? For most people, something like $500 to $1,000 makes sense. Anytime your checking account exceeds that ceiling above your operational needs, the excess automatically gets swept into an investment account. Some brokerage accounts will actually do this for you automatically. It's called a cash sweep feature. You're not even making a decision. The system makes it for you.
Fidelity did an internal analysis of which of their clients had the best investment returns. They found 2 groups consistently at the top. People who had died, literally deceased account holders whose money just sat untouched, and people who had forgotten they had the account. The single best predictor of investment performance, according to Fidelity's own data, was not touching it. Automation isn't just convenient, it's the closest thing to a cheat code that exists in personal finance.
Look, I want to zoom out for a second because I think there's something more important happening here than just investment mechanics. The quiet wealth killer isn't really about savings accounts or cash drag or opportunity cost in isolation. It's about the gap between what we intend to do with our money and what we actually do with it.
Most people have good intentions. They mean to invest that bonus. They know they should open a Roth IRA. They've been thinking about moving their savings to a high-yield account for, honestly, like 2 years now. But intentions don't compound. Money does. And I think what makes this particular wealth killer so dangerous is exactly what makes it so easy to ignore. There's no pain signal, no moment of obvious failure, no dramatic loss, just a slowly widening gap between where you are and where you could have been. The person who invested consistently, automatically, relentlessly, they don't feel like a genius. They just made a system and then mostly forgot about it. They didn't time the market. They didn't pick the right stocks. They just made sure their money was never idle when it didn't need to be. That's it. That's the whole secret. Before I wrap this up, I want you to do one thing. Not a whole system, not a full audit, just one thing. Right now, on your phone, open your bank app and look at what your savings account is actually earning. Just look at the number, because I'm willing to bet it's lower than you think. And I'm willing to bet you've never looked at it before. That one small moment of clarity, that tiny collision with reality, is usually all it takes to get started. Here's what I want you to take away from this video. The most expensive financial mistake most people make isn't something dramatic. It's not a bad investment, a failed business, or a stock that went to zero.
It's the slow, invisible erosion of what their money could have become, caused by keeping it somewhere comfortable instead of somewhere productive. Idle money is not neutral money. It is losing money. It is future wealth that you are quietly, invisibly choosing not to have. And the beautiful thing is, fixing this doesn't require you to become a stock-picking genius. It doesn't require you to take on more risk than you're comfortable with. It just requires a system, an audit, a decision, made once, automated forever. So here's your homework. This week, not this month, this week, go do that cash audit. Find every account, find every idle dollar, and ask yourself, is this money working for me? Or am I just comfortable with where it is? Because comfort and wealth, more often than not, are working against each other. If you found this video helpful, please do hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow and helps me keep making content like this. And subscribe if you haven't already, because we cover this kind of thing all the time. The stuff that actually moves the needle that most finance channels aren't really talking about. I'll see you in the next one.